Good day everyone, this is MJ Chaudhary. Today I will do a lecture on Central Intelligence Agency. So let's start. When CIA formed? The CIA was established on July 26, 1947 under the National Security Act of 1947. The Central Intelligence Agency serves a critical role in the shaping of American foreign policy. It is accountable for providing information related to national security issues to the US President and to senior US officials. And this is done by collecting intelligence about possible foreign threats to American security. As the Cold War began, much of the CIA's efforts focused on gathering intelligence about the Soviet Union. And next, CIA's headquarters. The headquarters of one of the world's most powerful and secretive intelligence services is in Langley, Virginia, on more than 250 acres of land, 8 miles outside of Washington, D.C. Next, organization of the CIA. The CIA is divided into 4 major teams. Number 1, National Clandestine Service (NCS) or Directorate of Operations. Number 2, Directorate of Science and Technology (DSNT). Number 3, Directorate of Intelligence (DI). And number 4, Directorate of Support (DS) or the Directorate of Administration (DA). And now we'll discuss NCS. NCS employees are often called spies and responsible for collecting foreign intelligence from human sources. The DI consists of analysts who are responsible to prepare assessments of foreign events and individuals based on intelligence collected by Directorate of Operations and by other agencies. The Intelligence Directorate analyzes intelligence data collected through open sources such as the media and the hidden sources from local agents, satellite photography, and the interception of telephones, mobile phones, and other forms of communication. The DSNT is accountable for collecting clandestine information through electronic and satellite imaging. The Directorate also collects intelligence information from radio and television broadcasts, magazines, and newspapers. And the DS provides financial and personal support for the entire intelligence agency. And next we'll discuss covert operations of CIA. During the Cold War, the United States supported coups and uprisings in an attempt to prevent pro-Soviet regimes from moving decisively into the orbit of communist bloc. Hence, the US supported resistance movements in countries occupied by outside communist forces and tried to generate rebellion in the Third World states ruled by communists. Similarly, in the 1980s and 1990s, the United States also tried to overthrow governments of those leaders who were seen as pursuing policies that were threatening the United States' interests. Some examples are ouster of Iranian Prime Minister Mosaddeq in 1953. Declassified documents released in 2017 highlighted the role of Central Intelligence Agency in the 1953 coup that ousted Iranian Prime Minister Mosaddeq. Also in 2013, the CIA publicly admitted for the first time that it was involved in the 1953 coup against Iran's elected Prime Minister Mosaddeq. Guatemalan Coup of 1954. In 1954, CIA-backed coup overthrew the democratically elected government of Jacobo Arbenz. And the overthrow of the Ngo Dinh Diem in South Vietnam in 1963. Diem's despotic rule isolated the South Vietnamese people and was impeding the progress of counterinsurgency war in South Vietnam. CIA then orchestrated a coup against him and replaced him. Next covert operation, Secret Army of Hmong tribesmen. As the war in Vietnam broke out, the CIA recruited an isolated community in the jungles of northern Laos in 1960s to fight Pathet Lao, the Laotian equivalent of Vietnam Viet Cong. More than 50,000 members of the Hmong tribe joined the US Secret Service, which helped block communist supply lines along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was a military supply route running from North Vietnam through Laos and Cambodia to South Vietnam. And next, Operation Cyclone. In the 1980s, the Central Intelligence Agency armed and trained Mujahideen guerrillas fighting the Soviet-backed government and the Soviet military in the Afghan War. Operation Cyclone was the code name for the CIA program to arm and finance the Mujahideen in Afghanistan from 1979 to 1989. And now we'll discuss failures of the Central Intelligence Agency. CIA's failure in Albania. When the CIA and British MI6 launched a joint operation in Albania in the spring of 1950s to unseat the communist government of Anwar Hoxha, it failed. Next, CIA failed to clearly predict the outbreak of Korean War 1950 to 1953. The Korean War began when Korean troops entered South Korea on June 25, 1950 and lasted until 1953. Declassified CIA documents make it clear that the United States and the South Korean government were unprepared for the war because of intelligence failure. Next, failure of the Central Intelligence Agency was CIA's every attempt to remove Castro failed. CIA attempted to overthrow the government of Fidel Castro. CIA attempted to land anti-Castro fighters at the Bay of Pigs in 1961. CIA attempted to overthrow the government of Fidel Castro in Cuba. Castro had ties to the Soviet Union. The presence of an enemy in America's neighborhood was unacceptable to the United States. In such circumstances, it was thought to get rid of Castro government, but every attempt to remove Castro failed. These CIA's attempts included the assassination of Castro. Another attempt was made in April 1961 when the CIA attempted to land anti-Castro fighters at the Bay of Pigs. Such failed CIA attempts against Castro regime tarnished its image. And next, Iranian Revolution 1979. On January 16, 1979, US backed Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, the leader of Iran since 1941, left Iran, but in August 1978, CIA concluded that there was no possibility of a revolution in Iran and collapse of the Soviet Union. US intelligence agencies were unable to predict the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Central Intelligence Agency was also criticized for exaggerating the economic and military strength of Soviet Union. Senator Daniel Patrick Mannion of New York in 1991 and again in 1995 introduced bills for the dissolution of CIA. And India's nuclear tests. George Perkovich, Richard C. Shelby, Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and other US officials in 1998 had said that both the Central Intelligence Agency and US foreign policy makers had failed to anticipate or monitor India's nuclear tests. September 11 attacks. Following the September 11 attacks on New York City and Washington DC by the Al-Qaeda terrorist group, the CIA and the FBI were sharply criticized for their failure to anticipate the attacks. Next, Arab Spring. Senior CIA officials have admitted that the US intelligence agencies failed to provide advance notice of the Arab Spring movements that led to the overthrow of the government of the Middle East and North Africa. Kim Jong-Il death and intelligence failure. US analysts were uncertain of Kim Jong-il's death some 48 hours after his death on 17 December 2011. And CIA's propaganda network. The Cold War was the war of ideas and ideologies. In this war, the two superpowers used propaganda as a weapon to fight an ideological war. CIA financed establishment radio stations. Radio broadcast could enter the Iron Curtain and address the enemy directly. This was very significant in the early Cold War period. Radio Free Europe, RFE. RFE was founded in 1950. The CIA ended its involvement in 1971. Radio Liberty. It was established for Soviet Union, founded in 1953. Radio Free Asia. Radio Free Asia began broadcasting to mainland China in 1951. Free Cuba Radio. Free Cuba Radio established in the early 1960s. Some more CIA's propaganda network, the Free Europe Committee, anti-communist organization founded in 1949. It published the magazine East Europe and also operated the Free Europe Press Service. The American Committee for Liberation. The American Committee for Liberation financed the Institute for the Study of the USSR. Munich-based institute was established in 1950. And next, African Forum and Africa Report. Both were financed by the CIA. The East African Legal Digest. Nairobi-based, the East African Legal Digest was set up by the CIA. The Asia Foundation. The Asia Foundation, founded in 1954, a CIA proprietary published newspaper. The Asian student that was circulated to students from the Far East who were attending American universities. Franklin Books. According to the New York Times, it was supported by CIA. In addition, the CIA had heavy investments in a variety of English language news organizations. The Rome Daily American. Rome-based, the Rome Daily American was an English-language daily newspaper operated from 1946 to 1984, was taken over by the CIA. Following newspapers were financed by CIA. The Okinawa Morning Star, the Manila Times, Bangkok World, the Tokyo Evening News. A number of news agencies were owned or financed by the CIA. These are the Foreign News Service produced articles. In 1960s, the articles were sold to hundreds of newspapers around the world, including New York Times. Forum World Features. It was the most widely circulated of the CIA-owned news services, founded in 1958. Thanks.